apologize. It's we get into the session. Seems like every time this committee has a standing meeting on its Tuesday, then our Senate counterpart has a meeting, or Natural Resources in the House has a meeting. So, we've tried to be very cautious and very respectful of the other committee meetings, especially when there's good, legislation that's going on. But we do have some measures in front of us today, and I'm usually run a very, everybody talks and, very loose meeting, but I'm telling you, we've got some very serious issues here, and we're gonna run through this, but it's gonna be structured, and we're gonna be very pointed about what we're doing. First of all, I want to welcome our newest member of the committee, John LaHood. John, welcome. Valdosta area. What counties are you?
Parts of Lowndes, Olive Brooks, and parts of Thomas.
All right. Amy. Oh Lord.
Amy's familiar with that.
Yes. Amy, I hope he's gonna be all right. Do you approve of him? Okay. As long as you approve, that's
Amy's still telling us all what to do.
yeah. I noticed that the quality of that Southwest Georgia delegation had just deteriorated quickly in the last couple of months. Well, that's your that's your oversight, Amy. I know. We miss you very much. We miss you very much, but we're glad to have John with us, and certainly as a member of this committee, and what we do and focus on here. Guys, first of all, I want to apologize. We're going to take up it's not a measure that is actually, the bill will be read. It was my fault yesterday. I dropped a bill, and I was going to ask for a waiver of the rules and get it first read yesterday. It will be read this morning, but I want to go ahead and have a presentation on the bill. I think the proposed bill is in your folders, if I'm not mistaken, or have we passed that out yet? Regarding, look in your folders. LC 440810ER. Do y'all have that in there? Real quick. We're gonna take about 5-8 minutes and discuss this. I don't think this is is something that will give any consternation to the committee. And what I'd like to do is have a discussion on this. And then, as the bill is read, I wouldn't mind this afternoon, upon adjournment, having a quick Game, Fish, and Parks meeting to take action if that's what this committee would like to do on this bill. But with that, I want to bring up Scott Tanner. Scott is representing this industry that is which this legislation is revolving around. Do you have a copy with you? You brought your own. And again, guys, this should be read today on the floor. I missed having it read yesterday. My fault. I got called out to the hall by some evil lobbyist. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm sorry. No. They were it was dealing with property tax. So anything with property tax is evil. But no, I'm joking. But again, Scott, if you'll give us a brief overview of the proposed legislation, and we'll have a short discussion on this. And again, if the committee would like, I'd like to see if it's will the committee have a short Game, Fish, and Parks committee upon adjournment after it's been read and assigned, that if they want to, we can take action on this.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
There you go.
Yeah, got me? Okay. Thank you, Chairman, and members of the committee. I know pretty much everybody here, but for anyone who doesn't, my name's Scott Tanner. I'm here before you today representing a company called Crosman. You probably all know Crosman if you've ever had air guns, and they're a leader in that industry. And I've been working with them a little bit on a small measure that does some good things for hunting. Basically, all this bill does is legalize large bore air rifles for the hunting of big game, and that's what it does. I'll tell you real quickly what it doesn't do. It does not. Although I'm here representing Crosman, they have no patent or anything on this technology. There's a lot of people that make these guns, so this is available to anyone who manufactures these things. A number of states have passed these, have legalized these weapons already. I know I don't have a complete list. In fact, I'll apologize to you in advance on one thing. The Crosman representative, who's the expert, was going to come talk to you this morning, had a personal matter he had to attend to. So I'm going to do my best, but I can tell you that Florida, for example, just legalized these for hunting big game, and a number of other states have. And so this is not an unusual measure by any means. So again, it simply legalizes 30 caliber or larger projectiles for hunting of big game during primitive weapons and firearm season. Now these, you'll see in here that these projectiles, it can be a bullet. These usually like 30 caliber or a 357 caliber specialty made bullet. And it can also be a slug or even an arrow. There's a thing called like an air bow. But we're staying away from archery season completely, so there's no issues with the archery hunters with that. So this technology would only be available during primitive weapons and gun season. The representatives from the Department of Natural Resources are behind me. I'll just let you know right off that we talked to them right from the get-go. This has their blessing. They're okay with everything here, and I've talked to basically the other groups that represent the big game hunting community in Georgia, and everybody's on board with this measure. A couple of them are behind me. We have Mike Worley with the Georgia Wildlife Federation, and William Woodall representing the Georgia Hunting and Fishing Federation. They've all been consulted on this and can speak to it if they want to, but they're okay. And then also Brian Murphy with the Quality Deer Management Association actually has a letter of support for this measure as well. So a lot of support, no known opposition this time. And I will bring to your attention just one small thing on here. You'll notice there is a sunset on here. And that does address one concern that DNR brought to our attention. And the reason it's got a 5-year sunset on it is because currently air guns do not pay the excise tax that regular guns do that we know as the Pittman-Robinson Act. Okay, so those P&R dollars don't get collected on air guns. So there's a concern that we're going to legalize a gun for hunting that didn't do this. The industry is supportive of being included in paying that excise tax. They're just getting organized as an association right now, and then as they do that, they're going to go to the feds and petition or go through the process to be included on that. But they're very supportive of being included in that excise tax, and this just gives them the opportunity to do that.
Any questions? Comments from the committee? All right, hold on a second. I got buttons lighting up. All right, you 8. Who's 8? That was the first one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess kind of 2 questions, but don't want to tie up too much time. But I know that you said you're going to read this one today, or
Yes.
have it read, and we'll do a little quick meeting. But from what you understand, this is all good. You're good
Yes,
with kind of.
I've first of all, from a personal interest, I don't own one of these air rifles, and believe me, the technology and the sophistication of these are unbelievable. If you have not looked at them or researched them, please go on the line. Typically, these are called PCP, pre-charged pneumatic air rifles. This is not your Daisy Red Ryder, so
Right.
please know that. I have spoken, Wes, along with the commissioner and I last Friday, had a good conversation about that. As Scott had mentioned, they went to the DNR, and I think the commissioner, I hope I'm safe in saying this, Wes, made sure that the folks within DNR, especially over the deer, understood what this was, and I think we've got a blessing. Wes, I want to make sure I'm saying that correctly. So we've looked at this from the commissioner through through him and WRD, and they're very very okay with this, if you will. I am too. Again, the technology's there. There are other states that are currently doing on this. This is sort of a new emerging industry with the air gun issue. I think it's great. I think this is going to allow folks to more opportunity for people to probably get into hunting. Our recruitment issues. You've got something that doesn't kick. It's a lot less noise than you know, a traditional rifle that would probably be used, and I think it just provides another opportunity to let somebody get in on this. Plus, it's a great thing to get young kids in.
And Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up question
Yes.
to him. It never hurts to make sure the chairman's good with all this before you dig into some questions. But and again, this is the first time I've seen this, but just one of my first questions would be, because it's new technology or because it's innovative, you'll hear us refer to high-powered rifles and different loads of powder and leads and all those to feet per second. On the different calibers of these air rifles, have they looked at putting some minimums on feet per second? Because you start shooting a higher caliber type air projected bullet, if you had minimum feet per second, it would give people the confidence that you're not out there shooting an animal with a projectile that is not going to humanely harvest the animal. And cubic feet per second is a big part of that.
That's a great question, Representative, and we looked at that in the crafting of this, and we decided to stay away from it, to keep it simple. I think part of that is an enforcement issue. The game warden out in the field having to where, you know, is this have the correct PSI or not? I think the other thing is, from a practical matter, all of these do. I haven't had very much experience with this either, and most of it's what I've read and seen on YouTube videos. I can tell you the way these things basically work, these pre-charged pneumatic cylinders, it's not anything like what you might be used to with the little CO2 cylinders or the brake action, pressurizing. These are basically a teeny tiny scuba tank at about pressurized to about 3,000 psi, just like a scuba tank would be, and attached to a gun firing these larger caliber bullets. So the feet per second is really the issue. I don't think it's they're all pushing that. Anything pushing that caliber of bullet out is pushing it out at the appropriate amount. I think the main thing is that these weapons do have a limited range, and so somebody using them would obviously have to keep it into probably 100 yards or less, type of range for these things to be effective.
Yeah, and follow up, Representative. Looking at this, these things, like you said, it's the, if you've looked at these, the PSI that is contained in the pressure that's being used, these are pretty expensive guns, very sophisticated. So you're not going to get a air rifle that is using a 30 caliber, slug, if you will, or say, what is it, say. Saber or what?
Sabo,
that is not pushing the right feet per, the right velocity to do that. Again, very sophisticated stuff. This is not, again, this isn't your Daisy Red
I just
Ryder
wonder
or
what
your
your-
spring action.
What your archery people are going to say when he fires a broadhead out of the end of that gun at 120 yards, where now we're limited to about
Well,
60.
but,
You know what I
but
mean?
again, that's why we're staying out of archery. These will be used for primitive, no different than a muzzle loader, and during the regular.
It was just saying he
rifle.
could fire a broadhead.
Yeah, they have, and it's compression. But like again, we're not touching archery or the archery season. We're saying that these can be used for the primitive weapon season and the regular rifle season.
I like it.
So, anyway, Jason, you're next, and then
Well,
Oh, hold on a second. I got two Jasons. All right, hold on. All right, Jason.
Are they coming to Georgia?
It,
Your company?
well, the company, this particular company is based in New York State, but they do have a Georgia presence. I don't know what manufacturing they do here, but no, the marketing director was going to come up is actually out of Savannah.
Most of
And-
these, to answer that question, most of these are distributed. There's not a lot of retail distribution. They're online type, sales. So I'm not.
Can I add
I
one
didn't know
thing?
if they're if they do, is there manufacturing in New York, you said?
Well, the company's headquartered in New York. I'm not sure where all of the manufacturing occurs, but I do want to emphasize that this isn't a bill for one specific company. This is for a technology which is available to anyone who wants to make them. So there are a number, probably 7 or 8 maybe bigger
Manufacturers.
players in the industry, and then there's some smaller ones that's all they make are these things. And so as these things become more popular, you'll probably see more specialty companies come up, and I think you will see them being made in Georgia, but I don't know how many of them are being
We
made here
welcome
right
them.
now.
Steve.
Yes, sir. Of course, I'm not very familiar with this, as I am most things, not at all. This got to be a single shot. You shoot, and then you got to reload it, and are they regulated by the ATF, or do you have to have a background check to buy one, or do you know? Or
They are not. They're not considered firearms. In the same way that muzzle loaders are not considered firearms. In other words, you can. You don't have to go through a background check to buy a bow, a crossbow, a muzzle loader. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. And you wouldn't need a background check to buy
I
one.
don't want
of
to get
these
off in
either.
the weeds, but it might come to the point we didn't even need a centerfire cartridge to hunt anything with anymore. We just might y'all use air rifles. But I got to own one of these because if it shoots, I want one.
Representative Tarvin, you need to look it up. They're you'll
But
be
now,
amazed at the.
Did you say Crossman? You know, I had a Crossman pump pellet rifle when I was a kid. There, it's the same see a
Yeah.
Crossman.
Yes, sir.
Crossman.
Crossman.
Okay, thank you.
You used to have a Red Ryder, you'd have it curve it around the tree.
Jason.
I think both of my questions are already answered. Representative Laricchia's question about my question was first because I saw, shoulder head device and I saw arrows, so I'm thinking, they make these in a crossbow too with a cartridge. Came out a couple of years ago, and they are something else. But that would be something else to consider. Obviously, your range would be shortened some, but I don't know if you've seen those, but they got the YouTube.
I've seen them. Sometimes they're called air bows.
Yeah.
But we stayed away from anything that's company specific in doing this. But yeah, they're pretty neat. But again, we wanted to not get crossed up with the archery hunters in any way. So it's the ones that shoot an arrow are really neat. But basically that would be about the same as shooting a crossbow. As far
Yeah,
as
that's
the
what I
range
was
and
saying.
effectiveness. And
But this is only going to apply to sort of the primitive type season, and not,
Yes, sir.
not get into archery at all.
that's right,
Okay.
Representative Shaw.
So that was my question. The other question was Representative Spencer's question about the manufacturing here in Georgia. That would be even better, icing on the cake.
We would welcome any manufacturers, but again, this is an emerging sort of a sector within the shooting industry, if you will, and I'll tell you as it starts to organize and get bigger and bigger, I think there's a lot of application not only from a hunting perspective, but from other simple uses of getting people into the shooting sports. And we'll wrap this up real quick because I know we've got another couple of important measures. But as you go to your 4-H or your high school shooting teams, they are shooting PCP air rifles. That technology, believe it or not, was Lewis and Clark. If you go back and you look at the pictures of Lewis and Clark, I forget what was the name of the rifle. It was I read this article, but this technology, as far as a PCP, it had a tank on it, and that's when they met the Indians. They would you know, it had so many shots on a tank, and they would just shoot, and that's how they ended up, you know, not having any problems along their way, was with an air rifle that was basically the same technology as what we're doing now, except it's a couple hundred years later and it's much more advanced. So I'm excited about this. I think not only from hunting opportunity, but from other aspects of an emerging industry. This is going to be good for Georgia. Good to get more people into hunting and the shooting sports. So with that, I appreciate the committee's indulgence. The bill will be read, and any comment from DNR, William, Mike, on this? Y'all okay? So. I wasn't aware Florida had big game, though, to be clear about it. Some may argue that, but again, I'm going to ask the committee's indulgence, because probably we'll have a you know, right after, I'm going to try to call right after session's over, just a quick meeting, and if that's the pleasure of what this committee has heard today, would it be, you know, willing to take some action on this? So the next measure is going to be, let me give you a little background. These are Chairman Shaw's HB 950. Last year, Chairman Shaw brought some bills because there was an issue regarding in Southwest Georgia, the timing of, I guess, the rut or the cycle of those Southwest Georgia deer, and the possibility of extending a hunting season down in certain parts of Southwest Georgia. That in itself rose a lot of problems. In fact, thanks, because my cousin-in-law, my emails got flooded today. But what I asked Chairman Shaw to do, and he did it, was to consider that if indeed the biology is there that looks at a way in which you could narrowly focus on flexibility within the deer hunting season, if the biology is there to perhaps extend in you know, that Southwest Georgia corner the season, and the way that I asked him to do that, and that had been talked about in our last 10-year whitetail study by DNR or WRD, was through a DMAP program. So I think we've got an issue here of trying to solve Chairman Shaw's issue and some hunters in Southwest Georgia, but we also have an issue of, I think, something else that's good for deer hunters also, which would be a DMAP program, in the way that you would maybe meet the goal of what Chairman Shaw is trying to do is through that DMAP program, which is, you know, based on science, biology, interaction with the landowner through a DMAP program. So he's put forth a bill to start that conversation here. And so what I would like to do is, first of all, let him go through the bill. And then second of all, I'm going to get DNR up here, because I think this committee has not probably heard a lot in detail about DMAP. So I think that's one of the things that we need to discuss, because that's the mechanism by which this would we would reach this end, if you will, for the Southwest Georgia folks. So with that, and then we'll hear from other folks, you know, regarding the measure itself. So with that, Chairman Shaw, if you will present your bill, and we'll go over it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Like the chairman said, I had the bill last year that was pertaining to archery only, and changing the date, the maximum date allowed, from January the 15th till the end of this January. You know, Southwest Georgia's obviously close to the Alabama line. Alabama goes till the middle of February now. It's a huge economic development tool for them the later season, because that's where everybody goes and hunts after here, because they're still having the cycle and the rut going on. Well, that's what we're seeing a lot of in Southwest Georgia, just later rut patterns. And the fact that it's pretty hot down there 1st of September, and a lot of people don't want to necessarily go climb a tree in the woods and while you're trying to swat mosquitoes and everything else. But obviously there were some strong feelings from mainly the small game community that honestly I didn't foresee. So we, held back and have put a lot more thought into this. Chairman Knight had educated me last year on DMAP and what that was all about. So we've had time to digest that, bring the department in a larger, role to discuss. And so it's been a learning experience for me, and I think it's a really good bill, this House Bill 950, and it gives DNR some flexibility is at the bottom line to use biology and science and transparency with public hearings like they've always had a history of doing to make educated decisions rather than us trying to just necessarily please a certain crowd that we represent. So if you'll look on the third page, one of the main points in the bill, you'll see on line 59 where we've changed the date there from the 15th to January 31. That would give DNR that flexibility, and it also cuts it off at a certain level. So we're only talking a couple more weeks maximum if they wanted to do it. But if you go to the next page and down at the bottom, starting on line 115, is where it references the Deer Management Assistance Program, the DMAP program down on 120. So basically what we're saying is these changes would have to be authorized inside of the DMAP program. So the department would be authorized to develop a Deer Management Assistance Program. Now the program, I've looked at some proposed rules that they had come up with there, and you're talking about you've got a number of, you've got like 3 different tiers. You've got the main one being like a 1,500 acre minimum, and then there would be a fee to the department for their cost in managing this type of program. When we passed the bill last year that updated our license fees for the first time since 1996, there's some additional funds there available to do things just like we're talking about here within DNR. So it's not like we're going to have to go out and make an appropriation to do this. It's a pretty modest fee to landowners or leaseholders to be able to participate in a program like this. But inside that, there would be a lot more biology and studying of the deer herd on that piece of property or properties. Whereas you're analyzing jawbones and everything, working closer with the landowners or leaseholders to really be able to study. And then if the study were to deem that maybe we should alter the number of animals harvested off that piece of property or the dates that they can be harvested, we would be giving DNR the flexibility to do that without actually saying this is what it's going to be. We're going to give them the flexibility to make that choice. And for one, I think no matter what the future holds, I think that the hunting community in this state have a large enough voice, always have, and have known to be pretty vocal, which is good, that, the right thing is going to be done there, and the department's not going to do something that's going to upset the whole community. So that's the gist of it. I'll be glad to answer any questions, but like I said, DNR has been involved in it. And I appreciate their involvement, and I'm glad we're able to do some things inside of here to give them some flexibility that they've needed to do that. I don't think this is anything that would say that you're going to give somebody a better opportunity to do something on their property that other people won't, because anybody in this state would be able to participate in a DMAP program on their property or their property they lease for a club or whatnot if they so choose to. And I have confidence that DNR will come up with rules and regs that will address the issues that I have and also be able to do some things that they want to do to better off our hunting community in the state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I've got a question. Representative Dubnik.
To my friend talking about Southwest Georgia, I'm more into feathers than fur, so you're going to have to indulge me for a minute. Talk to me a little bit about public land hunting and how this applies versus private land hunting.
This would, I'll let DNR clarify that, but in my opinion, I think this would only apply to private land.
Okay.
Whereas somebody either owns it or leases it, and it meets that minimum threshold acreage-wise.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I tell you what, with that, I'm going to ask John Bowers to come up and go over exactly what DMAP is and what it isn't. So again, I think regardless of seasons and all that, we've got an issue that before the last 10-year whitetail, the state whitetail study came out, or as part of those recommendations, DMAP was part of that. So I think if you will, John, will you tell us more about, or I guess a couple of questions. What is DMAP? What is it? What is it not? And then explain how and when it would be implemented. Is sort of, because I don't it's not implemented at this point in time. So I think those are the two questions that I'd like for you to go through.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I guess first off, I'd like to, I don't believe I've had opportunity yet this year, but to thank each and every one of you for the efforts and your support last session in adjusting Georgia's hunting and fishing license fees, since they had not been increased since '92. I think we all agreed it was well overdue, and appreciate y'all doing that in support of the department's conservation programs and the sportsmen, hunters and anglers of the state. With respect to Representative Dubnik's question, this wouldn't really have no impact on public lands. On our wildlife management areas, we set season opportunities, bag limits, all of that type stuff. First, based on science and biology, and then second, based on what we hear from hunters that hunt those properties. And I know with your keen interest in the ducks, and of course Southwest Georgia, the Lake Seminole, and a couple of the other public areas down there, I do not foresee any impacts whatsoever. Now with respect to the questions, DMAP program is just simply an acronym for Deer Management Assistance Program. It is used throughout actually a lot of southeastern states. In fact, most of them have some form of a DMAP program. And for the most part, by and large, it is a private lands technical assistance type program for specifically managing deer on private lands. This would be whether those lands are privately owned by an individual or whether there are several members who are leasing that land. So hunting clubs, private lands. Currently, Georgia does not have a DMAP program. As the chairman indicated, we have recently, a couple years ago, went back through and revised and updated our 10-year statewide deer management plan. That was the second iteration of one of those, and this was heard loud and clear from the hunters. And by the way, this plan is a public participation-driven plan. The committees that work on this plan are staffed with private citizens. It's not, DNR is involved, but we're just kind of there to kind of keep all the, cats pointed in the right direction, keep all the horses in the right corral, but it is a public-driven plan. And a DMAP program was one of the things that they did want to, indicated they wanted to see implemented. Some of the reason for that is right now across the state of Georgia, we do have a very healthy deer herd. And DNR's job is to manage the deer herd at a statewide level. We do not get into necessarily managing what somebody does on their 40-acre piece of property or even down to a county level. We have a long history of keeping things simple, avoiding burdensome regulations where we can, and so we have we approach it from a statewide level. Season comes in on this date, goes out on that date. You can kill this many deer, antlerless deer, this many bucks, and based on social desires, we have an archery season, primitive weapons, and firearm season. Outside of that, pretty much kind of step back. I do not think it would behoove any of us if we say we got 159 counties, and I don't think we want 159 different set of deer regulations. It would be, I wouldn't be able to keep up with it myself. I know that, and I need to keep things simple. But we have had in recent years some concerns by some hunters that the bag limit's too high, that they're not seeing as many deer as they used to see. And a lot of these, at least from our discussions and professional opinion, are local level issues, really property specific issues. And there's not really any one cause. I mean, if we do have folks that have 1,200 acres and you got, 30 people trying to hunt 1,200 acres, well, each of you not gonna be able to kill 2 and 3 deer. The piece of property that size just can't take it. But that doesn't mean, you know, while a bag limit restriction might be good for them, you got a guy that's 6 miles down the road, has got plenty of deer, and a bag limit restriction would then unduly hold him back from trying to meet his management objectives. So, you know, our bag limit and season structure set up to allow as maximum flexibility for hunters to make and landowners to make decisions they want on their property. But that's not these days. That's not satisfying everybody. There is a considerable number of people who would like to see the deer bag limit decreased. In the absence of a deer management assistance program, I would not recommend we move in that direction. Because it would unduly hinder those folks who need to be killing more deer on their property. But with a deer management assistance program, you now have an outlet for those individuals that do need that additional flexibility, harvest-wise, or whatever it is on their property that science says needs to be done for them to meet their management objectives for that deer herd. If we had something like that in place, we can handle those people. And then for all the other folks who are experiencing a difficult situation, if public desire and science indicated we needed to do that, we would then be able to reduce the bag limit for those folks. Deer Management Assistance Program would allow us the flexibility to address these other property-specific concerns with those individuals. Of course, with that being driven by science, one of the main components of some of the levels of a Deer Management Assistance Program is that landowner or that hunting club has to collect deer data. As they say, with data and systems, garbage in, garbage out. So the better data that we're getting off the property, the better and more specific those recommendations can be for that landowner or that hunting club wanting to meet their management objectives. So they would have to collect, gender of the deer. They collect jawbones so that we could age it. Weights, antler characteristics. Get to some of the higher levels on the does, particularly late season does. They'd need to collect any fetuses that may be in the doe so that we can backdate and determine rut as well as fecundity of those deer, as well as the ovaries that provides us the reproductive data for that piece of property. Implementation of something like this, it would takes a couple things. One of them is it takes staffing to deliver this service across the state. Without the staffing, there's no way to deliver the service. On the other side of that equation is there would need to be some changes in law, in statute, that would allow the flexibility necessary for a deer management assistance program to work. So those are the two components that would be required to implement this. If those components were to be in place, would probably take about a year to stand the program up at a statewide level. I know that was a lot of big words in there, and apologize for that. That's on me. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take those now.
Who's 8?
8. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just kind of did some quick searching on DMAP, had an opportunity to talk to Commissioner Williams, and I've actually heard Chairman Knight reference DMAP. There was some, Representative Shaw mentioned about the cost of participating in the DMAP for qualified. So the question I would have is like the minimum number in Georgia, minimum number of acres needed, and the cost for, say, a private landowner or a hunting club to participate.
That's a great question. What we have is, I guess I'd call it, concept form right now, and looks like we've got about 3 levels. And at the lower level, the level 1, there's no acreage minimum, no fee required. And really all you would get at that is you could call up, call one of the biologists. Hey, we've got a club, this many acres, this many members, we're killing about this many deer. We'd like to know, what it is we need to do. This is what we're wanting to manage for. So you just get some very general, more or less over the phone. Maybe it's a short email kind of technical guidance. They said based on that information is what we recommend. I think those folks would also be encouraged to look for to step up to the next level and collect some data, because I've talked to I myself have talked to many hunting clubs, call up, hey, we're wanting to manage for, you know, better quality bucks. You know, we're this many acres, this many members. Okay, well, what kind of deer data, you know, have you collected? Oh, well, we killed, you know, 20 deer last year. Well, how many of those were bucks and how many of those were does? Well, I don't really remember. And then you don't have weights and you don't have jawbones. That's not a lot of information to go on, and it's not real good information, but there's still some general guidance that can be provided to those folks as well. And so that would be of some benefit. So that's kind of the low level. Then there's kind of a mid level, which does require the cooperator to collect all deer harvest data, conduct trail camera surveys, possibly obtain a forest stewardship or some other type of management plan for that property. That has a 500-acre minimum. There would be somewhere in the range of a $200 to $400 kind of administrative fee. Those fees would kind of help offset some of the operational costs that would be necessary to run or provide this service. At that level, they would get personalized access to a DNR biologist, aging of each deer killed, data analysis, and site-specific harvest recommendations, a written harvest management plan, flexibility relative to buck-only days, on-site visits by that wildlife biologist, and site-specific antlerless tags, or what some folks call doe tags, that would be prescribed by that biologist based on the data and the objectives for that property. And then at the highest level, we refer to that as a management level 3. It requires 1,500-acre minimum, and also for all, just so y'all know too, for all of these levels, what are called cooperatives would also be eligible. That's like, got a landowner over here, it's got 100 acres. This landowner's got 400. This hunting club's got 500, but they all want to work together, so their property would be combined into a cooperative.
That would be contiguous acres, right?
Yes, yes.
It would
They would
have
all
to
be
be-
adjacent to
yes.
each other.
All right.
But when you say I'm sorry. When you say contiguous, that does not have to be a contiguous landowner, just a contiguous hunting property.
Correct. They would all be adjacent to each
Yeah.
other.
In other words, you couldn't have 100 acres 5 miles
Right,
away
right,
from
right.
the 400 acres over here.
If they had
and
3 leases,
two-
but they were all 2,000 acres.
you've got to have one land mass.
yeah.
In other
Okay.
words, the partials or leases would have to be contiguous such that in total they can add up to.
So at this highest level, this management level 3, there's a 1,500-acre minimum. Again, cooperatives are eligible. There'd be rough somewhere between a $400 to $800 annual administrative fee. Again, those would be to help offset operational cost of this program. The cooperator would collect all deer harvest data, annual trail camera surveys, have in place a habitat management plan, and provide antler buck photographs for evaluation of harvest criteria. Obviously, that's some additional piece of data that does require a little bit more time to go through, identify individual bucks, and then based on this individual's harvest criteria, help them and decide which ones need to be removed, which ones don't. The deliverable services, again, personalized access to a DNR wildlife biologist, aging of each deer killed, written harvest management plan, flexibility on buck-only days, and antler restrictions where biologically appropriate. 2 site visits by that assigned biologist every year. Directly facilitate the formation of a cooperative. Site-specific antlerless tags, site-specific and criteria-specific antlered buck tags, as well as with that level, there could be some season flexibility relative to harvest and what they need to meet their management plan as driven by science. Then we also have a category for like an urban-suburban cooperator. I think particularly for any that may live in an urban or suburban area, I'm sure you're well aware of the deer issues when deer and our urban and suburbanites tend to get together.
Deer and cars, of course, that's
don't mix
statewide,
well.
but especially in the urban area, suburban areas.
Well, I think as the saying goes, deer are gonna die. They can either be killed by your Mercedes-Benz or a hunting rifle. This would be limited to urban counties as determined by criteria that's in the DNR statewide deer management plan. There's no acreage minimum here, and this would mainly be for removal of antlerless deer in order to manage deer population. The key component there are antlerless or doe deer. So this would help facilitate could help facilitate doe harvest in the urban suburban areas and help mitigate some of these urban deer conflicts that we're experiencing.
What number, hold on, Trey, what number are you?
So, just from your description, level 3 is the only level that has the flexibility in the seasons, correct?
That's correct at this time point in time.
Questions? You, Alright. I saw a blinking light, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay,
I just wanted clarification to make sure.
alright.
Let me ask one here, I don't like, but I just wanna clarify something I'm telling a lot of people. We have a group that comes up and I'll see them at church and they're like, when are you gonna cut the limit to 4? And I'm not seeing the deer like I used to, and I wanna make sure I'm telling them right, because this is how we've done it. A lot of times when they come up and tell me that, I ask them, what are you hunting? Do you have a food plot? Do you have a kill plot? A little bit different. They don't understand that. Most people don't. And when you tell them that, what are you planning? How many acres do you have? How many hunters do you have? And you start realizing real quick, they either have somebody else drawing all the deer over to their area. Some people want to go out and just put some corn out and expect that deer's going to come to corn. That's not, number one, what they want to eat. That's kind of an appetizer. But with that, after you educate, well, no, I'm just saying.
That will be, that will be the next measure that we discuss here after this one, okay?
No, but what I want to make sure is that's pretty much telling when the people that you have to pretty much take care of bringing animals there. You have to feed them. You have to give them sanctuary. You have to make sure that you have that, because a lot of these people come up and they think because we're taking so many deer that it's a problem. That, that's why they're not seeing the deer, and they're not putting in the time basically to
Have the
harvest it.
habitat
right.
to
But
grow
one
or
question, I'm just want to make
support.
sure I'm
That's-
correct in what I'm
Yeah.
telling him. I'll let Dominic does that. He asks as much as anybody I know,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that.
That is correct.
Yes.
Real quick, you question? You what now? No, we there's some things that we other parts of this bill we're gonna have to look at. Any other questions? I know we've got some other folks here to speak to or for the bill. So if you would, John, let's let those folks come up and. No, there's some things that we need to look at. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Mike Worley with Georgia Wildlife Federation. It's a pleasure to be here and appreciate all the comments. I learned a lot sitting here listening to John, as I always do when I sit and listen to John. He's a true resource and a treasure here for the state, and I appreciate the work that y'all are doing and all the commitment that you've made to hunters and fishermen here in this state. I am always in awe of the work that you folks do on this committee each year. Wanted to speak just briefly on a couple of issues that I've heard from some of the people that I work with and I represent there at the Georgia Wildlife Federation. Some of our small game hunters have indicated a concern over extensions of deer season. That's probably the number one concern I hear about regularly. I received a call last night talking to the Vice President of the Rock Creek Coon Hunters Association, a nice young man who's committed to taking his kids out, his son and daughter out small game hunting on a regular basis. He's concerned about the impact that any extension of deer season has upon the small game hunter. And the small game hunter is typically our gateway or our entry into the hunting world. As at least that was the case for me, and is the case for a lot of folks. Where I started out squirrel hunting with my dad at 5 years old. So that's one of our that is the primary concern that we have over any bill that talks about extending deer seasons. The DMAP component of this bill is really interesting, and I'm also speaking. I should have said this right up front. Also speaking on this part in behalf of Quality Deer Management Association as well. They've asked me to represent them today. They couldn't be here. They are absolute adamant supporters of the DMAP program, and I think that there's a lot to be said for that. Something we ought to continue to consider and really look at. The one challenge associated with that still goes back to where John started his first bit of the conversation about the simplicity of Georgia's deer regulation today from a regulatory standpoint versus individual plans all over the state and how they might be handled. That seems to be a bit of a concern from my perspective, and I think a concern from some of our members. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I just wanted to voice the concern that we continue to hear from those small game hunters, and encourage you to consider those folks as you look at these proposals. Glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it, Mike.
Appreciate you.
William?
Members of the committee, I'm William Woodall. I represent the Georgia Hunting and Fishing Federation. We're cautiously optimistic that under the DMAP program, I haven't gone through the entire plan to look at it. I like to hear that some of the smaller landowners have an opportunity, but some of our members have concerns that this does favor one part of the hunting community over another. Somebody that has a smaller tract of land and he's hunting next to a large landowner that can have flexibility in their deer limits and the things that they can do, and both people are paying the same $90 license fee. So that is some concern, but we'll continue to work with the author and the department to make sure some of those guys are looked after. And we do have some concern, as does the Wildlife Federation, with small game hunters. We do realize that deer hunting is the driving force behind our state as far as hunting fees and everything goes. We get that. That's the largest number of hunters in the state. But we are the Georgia Hunting and Fishing Federation. We support all legal hunting and fishing in the state of Georgia, so we do like to stand up for our small game hunters. But I think there's a way that we can address some of the problems and issues that Chairman Shaw has, and giving some flexibility back to DNR on bag limits and season, that they can determine what's best for the different parts of the state instead of having it be a political football up here at the state capitol. Thanks again for all y'all's work. We appreciate you. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Committee? Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Yeah, I woke up today to a box full of emails also from the small game hunters. And again, this is we're trying to do something. I think there's two purposes, as I stated. One is overall DMAP that gives flexibility from, a sound wildlife perspective, a science perspective that gives some flexibility. And as we've heard from John and DNR, Georgia's tried to keep its deer regulations simplified, if you will. But sometimes that's a conflict because we know that deer in North Georgia don't act like deer in South Georgia and Middle Georgia and East and West Georgia. And I think that was some of the impetus for a DMAP program that will give some flexibility. So I think we're on the right track. And then ultimately, I think there was the issue of Chairman Shaw's issue with some folks in Southwest Georgia from a perspective of needing to ascertain, if we do have extended or rut or cycles with the doe down there, should there be flexibility down there? So that's what we're trying to do here. I've reviewed the bill. Part of this bill is also fix or cleanup language. So if you look through the bill, there are some things in which we're going and cleaning up other issues. John, if you'll maybe step up and I'll talk about what, upon reviewing this and some thoughts that I'd like to share for consideration for how do we tighten this down to the point where it's very tight. But if you'll start on, I guess, 21 deer, what we've done here is we've basically we've stricken, if I'm not mistaken, this is the time in which it is unlawful to hunt. Okay. I want to make sure that we go back because I think you've got to tier this thing. Okay. Remember, DNR has tried to set a statewide, as we heard, sort of set an overall set of regulations. And so, one of the things that is what I call the bookends of when you can hunt and cannot hunt deer, and that's from a general regulatory perspective. What I would like to do is make sure that we for a general perspective, keep that bookend as it is, and then make an exception under a separate section, okay, that up under DMAP, where permitted by biology, then you may have an exception for the season, you know, the time or the time of flexibility of season if it's biologically. In other words, you've got to, that's a question for DMAP and is the science there. So I want to go back and address that, but if you will, there's some language like 29, we're marking through some of the old areas, for whatever reason, historically these boundaries and all are there. There's cleanup language, raccoon, Representative Donahue, you know all about raccoons, don't you? Yeah. Then on page 59, this is where I'm trying to figure out how to do this and how to narrowly focus this committee in the language that would meet the objectives that we've stated today. I'd like to consider going back to 59 and almost tiering this. In other words, deer season from general, 8th through the 15th, okay? You see the struck language that says, except there also may be an extended archery season, January 1 through 31, and that was our urban counties. I've had some discussion with Wes and through that. I think there's some updated counties that I would like to look at adding to this list. In other words, as you can't go fire a rifle in Fulton County. But if y'all have ever seen some of the pictures of Tom Taylor's son's deer, or you would be amazed. They're killing trophy animals in Sandy Springs. So there is a need for this urban deer management plan here. So what I'd like to do is maybe keep that section in here, okay? Also, I'd like for DNR, WRD to get me the additional counties that have been, since the origination of this law, that may be needed, that we may need, this committee may wish to add to these suburban areas, okay? So that we are updating this code as we go. So if you don't mind, let's make a note of that. But similar right here under 59, where we've got an exception for the urban deer management plan, I think we also at this point would like, this is where I'd like to say a separate exception for a DMAP plan, okay? And put in the extended date at that point. So we basically have a tiered system that says the state in general, then if you fit up under urban deer management plan, here's what the season is, and then the flexibility if there's an exception for a DMAP plan, then you have that. The committee, see where I'm going with this? Well, it's at the right level, but that would be within where we'll have to turn that over to DNR, WRD to determine all, well, the cooperators, but that's once you get into the science and the interaction between the landowner or cooperative entering into a DMAP program and them getting to the point of the science that says, yes, you know, this is a criteria you've met, we will consider the extension, okay? But that's DNR. I don't think we legislated that detail. That's the DMAP program. That's what it's there for. The other, again, we keep going through the bill, 85, again, striking those counties, for possum, raccoon again. Real quick, and I got a question on this. I know that we've gone to game reporting system. This may be just because of technology that this 109 has been struck about reporting on the 5th day of February the number of deer killed by sex and all that. Is that why we're taking that information is already readily available?
Yes, that would be correct. That information's available real time, 24/7, 365.
Okay. So if you'll look on lines 109 through 115, that struck language right there, that's the purpose of that. We used to have a report, even though I've never seen it, but now with Game Check, anybody can go online and go to the Game Check and see the counties and see what was killed where and when, right?
That is correct.
So, and then I want to look at line 15. This is some language that I guess is giving authorization, if you will, by code to a DMAP program. And I'd like to look at that language. And again, the season in 120, 122, I don't know if I want to put that here or I want to put it back into that column format where it's separated out, where it's delineated, that we have, so that it's very clear. You've got the big state, you've got an urban deer plan, and then you've got DMAP. It may be semantics and legalese, but I want to look at that to make sure that we're very clear on that. Because if we don't, and you get something in here and all the small game hunters think we've opened up the whole entire state for that, this committee, I mean, is going to get, there's some mad people. We may. That's what I want to look at. I'm going to talk with the author, and I'm going to talk with DNR and Leg Council.
Probably redundancy, but it's covering your butt like.
Well, so that's what I'd like to do, and then maybe, 15, just strike as may be appropriate, but based solely on sound wildlife principles or wildlife management principles. That's the language I would like to see, as far as the DMAP program, so that they've got. It's very clear to everybody. You get this DMAP, this is about the exchange of information, deer herds, your size, your age structure, class, all that. This is truly based upon an interaction between the landowner, the hunter, and the biologist at the deer, so that we can provide these good management plans and the flexibility that they're looking for, including what Jason's trying to get at as far as the South Georgia season. Okay? Is that fair enough?
I'm just worried about the time.
Well, we're here. I mean, hey,
Clock's ticking.
I got it, guys. I got it. But we've gone through a lot of this. We're close. Okay.
Sounds simple enough,
Okay.
and I think it does what you're trying to do.
But I want to make sure.
Would Leg Council better get some language and we voted out in the other later meeting today?
I don't know if they can or not. So we'll see. If not, we'll try to have a meeting as soon as possible. Okay. But I want to make sure we do this. The other thing I want to consider. Now, you talked about in the original bill last year. And again, we go back to the hunters. Archery versus firearm. Okay? Last year, purpose in that South Georgia was just an extended archery. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So from this committee's perspective of trying to balance the needs of small game and everybody else, I'd like to look at and talk with the author about that to see that instead of firearms, what about archery only for that extended part? Okay? Under DMAP. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get people on side properties over there that may end up shooting rifles and deer hunting when somebody else's deer season is going out. I'm just, and you still got the issue of dogs and all that. But I'm going to talk to the author and look at that. But these are the changes that I'd like to look at today. I'll get with Arthur, I'll get with John and Wes, and we will go through some of these things. Is that committee? Questions or concerns about what I've just?
On the archery part,
think if you go to the DMAP,
Mm-hmm,
in two sections, you're referencing DMAP.
mm-hmm.
Then you go to full, capability, you go firearms and archery, because that's a 1,500 acre minimum, that is humongous. To even qualify
Well-
for the flexibility to January 31st, you can't even go to January
I-
31st if it's not under DMAP. So I would say leave firearms
Well-
in, as long as it qualifies DMAP.
That's what but I've also, you know, Representative LaRicchia, you also have got to understand that there are fellow landowners who may not either wish to participate in DMAP or who may not have the land acreage size, or they may have a different hunting interest. So we've got an interest of, I want to look at the archery only, because that was one of the things that I think you had spoken of, Chairman Shaw, last year, was an archery only season. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay? So that will further maybe prohibit the conflict between fellow or neighboring landowners who are hunting, okay, and who may be hunting something else versus the rifle season. So again, I'm gonna talk to Arthur and DNR about this, but that's where I'm trying to manage, guys. And again, y'all know this from this committee. We're a family, and when it's like a bunch of kids that we have here, and they all have different interests, different talents, and all that. So one of the things that we try to do is balance. And I hope the committee knows, and I'm serious about what we're doing here, but I'm trying to find a way to balance the needs of everyone, but also of all of the folks that we've heard that have got concerns with small game and all that, okay? They're just natural issues that are conflicts of interest. But that's where I'd like to go. We'll talk as soon as we get out of this meeting, and, you know, even come off the floor if we need to, and we'll start to talk about the changes. Real quick, guys, I know I've got rules. I'm gonna put Chairman, and I talked to Chairman McCall, the baiting bill, and we'll put it in a subcommittee. We're not gonna go back and discuss the ethics or the whys you should or should not bait as far as hunting and why it makes it better or not. That debate was carried out how many years ago?
2011.
2011.
My cousin-in-law comes in the first session, and that's the first battle we have. It was a battle. We're not gonna talk about that. I think that issue has been decided, so to speak, from a social point of view of why people want to bait. But what I would like to do, and this is all seriousness, if you don't think I'm serious about this, please test me. Y'all know I will lock down on something. But I understand the debate's been heard from one aspect, and that's the will from an ethical or why you should do this point of view of hunting and why it's good. I'm going to write an email to the committee members. Again, because of time, a subcommittee, but I told Tom that I was going to do this. I spoke with Chairman McCall. There's 2 or 3 issues I want this subcommittee to address, and they're very, very serious. But I'm going to write an email to him. We'll get a subcommittee, and I want some of these issues seriously addressed, and then we'll consider it. I'm not going to sit here and argue like we did in 2011 over this. Okay, clearly the social aspect of this and the reasons why, we're not going to go back and fight that. But I think there are some issues that this committee needs to look at. Okay, and I think that we need serious discussion. And I'm just real quick. One is a priority of one hunter over another. Okay, because there is a conflict there that we do have one hunter over another. Second of all, I want to make sure that this committee realizes CWD, and y'all do realize that there was a hot outbreak in Mississippi just 2 weeks ago. I don't know if members are keeping up with that. Okay.
Yeah, but not as a result of baiting.
Well, it's not a result of baiting, maybe, but the first action that is taken. Again, guys, it's a risk assessment.
That's right.
But we're going to discuss it. We're going to address the issues. Okay. We're going to make sure everything is out there. All right, and that everyone is aware of the risk of that. But I want to talk about the issue of CWD. I want to hear from DNR regarding the immediate steps that would be taken, and I'm talking not just closing off the season, the immediate steps that we've taken, the testing and the reaction of quarantining, and then also from an economic, because everybody talks about economic of what deer hunting is, and it is an economic driver. We talk about rural issues in Georgia, tourism, things like that. There are little towns that, you know, little town around where you are, and you know, Monticello. I mean, you know, it's a big deal. So I want to make sure everybody understands that that's an issue, and we want to at least know the risk that is increased with baiting. Those are the two issues I want at least this committee to address in a very serious way. And I'm looking at some of my friends on this committee that I've served with for a long time. Take it seriously, okay? If you don't, and I know the politics, at least make sure you're serious about the issue, okay? We'll discuss it, we'll make sure the risks are exposed, we'll discuss some of these issues, and then, you know, it is what it is, okay? Is that fair enough?
And you're sending us an email.
I will send you an email today regarding, I just haven't had time with this committee in trying to work on Jason's bill to get that done, okay?
If they can get us some language that you've recommended, do we be able to take action on his bill this afternoon, or you want to include Chairman McCall's is totally separate?
No, Chairman McCall's
But if
is
they can
separate.
get language, we can take
Yeah.
action on Jason's
Yeah.
this afternoon?
Yeah. If it's possible that we can, we're gonna go see if Leg Council can make these changes and that we're all on the same page, okay?
Okay.
With that, committee, I appreciate your time, and, again, look for hopefully a meeting right after session.